Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 47 of the Run in the Paint podcast. I'm Miles. I'm here with Nick and Joey. Guys, how are you doing today?
Feeling good, feeling good. These conference finals have been heating up.
It is late Wednesday or slash early Thursday, and the Boston Celtics have finally won two home games in a row. Clap it up, clap it up, clap it up.
That is very true. Yeah, conference final action has been going on. Game two of the Eastern Conference Finals just wrapped up, and we'll get started right with it with the Indiana Pacers and the Boston Celtics. Talking about game two, where the Celtics took home the victory 126 to 110, getting the 2-0 series lead. But I think before we talk about game two, we should probably go back and talk about game one, the crazy game one, in a game where we were talking in the pre-pod lobby, where the Indiana Pacers, this was their game to steal in this series. We all thought their one chance to win in Boston, and they literally gave it away at the end.
Yeah, I had mentioned how I thought Boston was going to win this series in six. I initially thought it was going to go 2-2-2 to Indy, and it still could, but there was a lot of momentum with Indy heading into game one because Boston had sat for a long time. Like I just mentioned, they never can win two home games in a row, so they've blown it before. And Indy played great against New York to wrap up that series. So, they really played their game. Like a lot of people have said, they kind of controlled the pace, and that's why they were in the game at the end. And like obviously they give it away. Tyrese Halliburton, just too many turnovers. 20 turnovers into 30 some transition points for Boston. That's literally the definition of shooting yourself in the foot.
Definitely not the recipe for success. Definitely not.
No, like this, the Pacers, like you said, Nick, they played great to end that Knicks series, and they played great to start this series, and it looked very quickly like the Celtics, they started the game very hot. They were up 12-0 immediately, and it looked very rough for the Pacers. It looked like this was their it was like this was their welcome to the playoff moment. They were losing the ball. And that was also part of great Celtic defense, but it looked very quickly like, oh my gosh, is this going to be another quick series for the Celtics? But it was a game of runs immediately after the Pacers kept fighting back. It was just a game of runs. Every time it looked like the Celtics were going to pull away, the Pacers just came back, and they had the game up by 3 with 27 seconds to go. A couple turnovers. There were so many times where it just looked like this game was over, and the Pacers, they just couldn't get it together.
Yeah, like they shot 60 some odd percent in this game, and to walk out of there, to walk out of TD Garden at the end of the day and not have this one under your belt, that is huge for the rest of the series.
I definitely thought the Celtics would sweep. But like watching this game, I was like, I'm probably going to be wrong because I literally thought Indiana was going to win this game, and this was their best chance to steal. And clearly looking if to game two, where Boston just completely pretty much led from got together close to the end of the first quarter, and then just carried it on through the rest of the game. There was no shot Pacers got anywhere on the road, which is unfortunate because they were playing so well.
Very unfortunate. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. Something that we didn't discuss at all beforehand was that Jaylen Brown three-pointer at the end of regulation. So of course the Pacers turn it over a couple times. The Celtics get the ball inbounded on their baseline under their own basket, and they get it to Jaylen Brown in the corner, who makes the three-pointer in the
Can I
corner
guess
to
what
tie
you're
the
gonna
game.
ask? I know what you're gonna ask.
Yeah, what do you guys
You're
think
gonna ask if
about
you would
the
foul in this
yes,
situation,
the
right?
fouling situation, because I've heard so many people talk about that.
Well,
It's boring,
I don't know.
but it's so smart.
I feel like, especially with how much time there was on the clock, which was like between 6 and 8 seconds or so, that's like right on the cusp of whether or not you're gonna foul. Because I really feel like that is what it comes down to. Under five, I'm for sure fouling. Yeah, I feel like you're a lot more comfortable with that. But it's kind of in a weird range there where like you're almost guaranteeing them another possession, and if they have a timeout to advance the ball, like if
which
you
they
get the
didn't. Which they didn't. They had no timeouts remaining.
so if you foul them and put them at the line with 8 seconds on the clock, say they hit them both, and then you have to inbound the ball, there's still going to be 5 seconds with you at the line. You're only up by one at this point. So if you miss one, then there's at least 5 seconds, and they have time to go dribble down and get a bucket. That's
Yeah,
the argument against fouling.
yeah, for sure. I
Now the
mean, it
argument for
is.
fouling is obviously what we saw play out in this game.
I think that this was a very difficult situation to foul because of where Jaylen Brown caught the pass from. Like where he caught it from in the corner, Siakam got caught a little bit on a screen, I believe by Derek White to run into the corner. And Jaylen Brown caught the ball. Pascal Siakam was kind of running a little bit late. And I feel like if Siakam fouled Brown there, Brown could have just gone up in his motion and it would have been 3 shots anyways. It was so close.
You know, we almost saw that in, not to switch it up to the West game, but Mike Conley almost had a 4-point play down four with like 3 or 4 seconds to go.
We did. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, if that one would have gone, heaven
That would have
knows.
been wild.
That would have been
I'm just,
insane.
by the way, I'm thankful that we got two good game ones. After a long, we had a lot of blowouts to end that second round, but a couple good game ones really set the tone for, I think, what's going to be really exciting the rest of the playoffs.
The game
Absolutely.
ones were certainly a lot of fun.
It was just a shame that after the Pacers, they gave it away at the end of regulation. They couldn't really turn into anything in overtime. Jason Tatum really struggled for the game, but he made a couple big plays late.
Shots.
Had that and one on TJ McConnell, which I don't know why he fouled there. Then Tatum got an open three. He knocked it down. And then that was it for the Celtics in game one. And then you look to game two, where the Pacers, again, they got off to a decent start. They were up 27-25 near the end of the first quarter. They took Tyrese Halliburton out, and promptly the Celtics went on a 17-0 run with Halliburton out of the game. And that was basically it. I mean, the Pacers made a nice run to end the first half. Siakam had another big game in this one, but it was just all Boston in the second half where Tyrese Halliburton then injures his left hamstring in the third quarter, has to miss the rest of it, and that was really it for the Pacers.
That's very worrisome about the hamstring. You were telling me in the pre-pod lobby that's the same hamstring that was bothering him right when Pascal Siakam got traded to Indiana, and he was out for a couple games. That's definitely not what you need. Look at what happened in the New York Pacers series. What happened in Boston, Cleveland. Your top one or two guys go down. You're really going to be fighting. It's almost, it's just over, almost.
Yeah, Indiana doesn't have a chance without Tyrese Halliburton in this series. Frankly, they have a very slim chance with Tyrese Halliburton in this series. But if he's not going to be on the court, he needs to be making an impact on nearly every possession if they're going to win either of these two next home games. So that is definitely the biggest story going forward, and a huge loss here in game two. He played 28 minutes. Didn't really have a huge night offensively until that point.
Pascal had a good day though. He had 28 points.
Pascal was very good, very efficient.
No rebounding, like I said. Even though the numbers weren't terrible, like the totals, it was 40-37 Boston. It's only a 3 rebound difference. Miles Turner had 4 rebounds. Pascal Siakam had 5. Those are your two biggest guys going against Al Horford and Jason Tatum. You guys should win those. I'm sorry.
I think the biggest stat to look at so far in this series, and we talked about how it hurt them in game one, is the turnovers. Where you look at game one, the Pacers had 21 turnovers compared to 14 by the Celtics. Go to this game, the Pacers had 16 more turnovers and just 10 by Boston. Um, and it's just difficult in a series where you're pretty even with all the other statistics and the 3-point shot. It's pretty even. This game they got to the foul line a little bit more. I know that was a big story after game one. Turnovers just kill you, and you cannot make mistakes against a team that is this good like the Boston Celtics.
Oh, definitely not.
Definitely hit the nail on the head with the turnovers things. I saw at the end of the first quarter, Boston was only winning the turnover margin by 1. It was 6-5, and to go the rest of the way, have Indy commit double the turnovers that Boston does in the following 3 quarters. I mean, that's pretty much it's a good summary of what happened the rest of the night.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about the Pacers a lot. I do want to give a huge shout out to Jaylen Brown
Absolutely.
for the Boston Celtics. We'll get to the All NBA teams later. Where they just came out. He was a big snub. A lot of people pointed to, and
he's the highest paid player in the league.
Yeah, and he showed it out tonight. He wanted to prove everybody wrong. Dropped a 40 bomb?
40 this game. Of course, the huge numbers in game one and that big clutch shot at the end of regulation.
Mm-hmm.
He was fantastic. Another subpar game from Jason Tatum. I know the stats in game one were fantastic. He had 35 points, 12 rebounds, but wasn't the best when it mattered the most. But Jaylen Brown was great. I thought in these first 2 games, similar to the final half of that Cleveland series, Drew Holiday continues to be spectacular offensively.
Yeah, Drew Holiday, 6 for 7, 10 assists, 15 points. Great night for him offensively as well. Yeah, but Jaylen Brown, I mean, he's very impressive, especially in this series. In the first 2 games, just like relentlessly attacking over and over and over, and making good plays, making things happen for his team. And anytime you hear him talk, whether it's at halftime or after the game, the dude's locked in. He's got that dog in him right now. I mean, it's fun to listen to him talk, but we also saw some O'Shea Brissett minutes, some good bench minutes from Peyton Pritchard as well. Sam Hauser played well in this game.
Yeah, so Luke Cornett in the first half of this game, he sprained his wrist, only played about 5 minutes or so. And the Celtics, of course, already being without Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford, you don't want to play him too many minutes at his age. So they went with some O'Shea Brissett minutes at the 5, and they were very impressive in just 12 minutes of action. Some of those were garbage time minutes, but had 2 points, 3 steals, plus 18 in 12 minutes.
Wow.
Very energetic in limited minutes when he really hasn't played a lot this season. A former Pacer, had some good moments for the Pacers when he played for them. Came in, made some big energy plays, and was a huge spark plug for them off the bench.
That's what you call being ready at all times. That's called being a true pro.
No question about it. And Nick, you were talking about Jaylen Brown. I think that he's a guy that hasn't really been mentioned a lot in these playoffs. I guess similar to the Boston Celtics, because everyone just looks at the teams that they're playing and the injuries, and they're like, oh, Mickey Mouse run for the Celtics going in. But Jaylen Brown in these playoffs is averaging 25 points on 54% from the field. 36.5% from 3. The free throw shooting, it's whatever. But, he's been very efficient. And like you said, it's just been relentless attacking. And he's someone that I don't think gets enough credit for improving his game from when he first came into the league, because he is a completely different player from when he first came into the league out of college.
Well said. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Well, he definitely has all the pressure because, like Nick said, also he is the highest paid player in the league. He needs to keep improving, and this is what they need from him.
Do you guys think they should have fouled then? Obviously, Indy.
Yeah. Stop. Yeah, of course.
Oh, right, because of the poor free throw percentage.
And are we sticking to our predictions? I got Celtics in 6. Joe, you're sticking with the sweep?
Ooh.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh, see, I'm starting to think. I'm gonna say Celtics in 5 after these 2 games. because I'm worried about Tyrese Halliburton's injury after these 2 games.
Yeah, that's fair. All right.
They don't. The Pacers. I'm sorry. Even if Halliburton goes out there, if he's feeling any type of soreness, he's not going to be the assertive, kind of dominant All NBA point guard that they need him to be.
But heck, Indiana has been the underdog really all these playoffs all season long.
Yeah.
You never know what could happen. I mean, the fact that the Pacers are even in the conference finals is crazy in itself. So we'll see,
Yeah.
man.
I remember
Definitely.
even in the beginning of the season when they started off so hot and in season tournament, everyone's like, yeah, well, they're definitely going to slow down at some point. They're definitely not going to keep it all the way. Everyone slept on them throughout the regular season, throughout the playoffs, and here we are. They're in the conference finals.
Unbelievable stuff from the Pacers. Regardless of what happens in this series, it's been
Yeah.
a dramatic success. Very interesting to see where they can go from here if this series doesn't work out for them.
Oh yeah.
Moving on, let's go to game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Another very, very good close game, but the Dallas Mavericks pulling it out on the road, 108-105, and another bit of a stunner here. I know, even off the podcast, we have a pick'em group chat where it's like 9 of us that pick all these playoff games, and all of us had Minnesota winning game 1. Even Nick and Joey, who had the Mavericks winning the series, thought that the Wolves would win game 1. And it looked like they were going to do it, man. They were looking very, very solid through 3 quarters of play. But the fourth quarter, they just tightened up a little bit, and the Mavericks pull out the win.
I would be screaming Dallas and trying to get my dog up here to get her some screen time because Dallas is incredible. But she is sleeping right now behind me, so I will not. I will let her dream. But
Shout out to
hey,
Dallas.
shout out to Dallas Mavericks. Like they played a heck of a game. Kyrie had a fantastic game. Like we were even talking in the pre-pod lobby. You said first half Kyrie couldn't miss. Second half he was cold, but Luka stepped right in and he couldn't miss. Like it just perfect balance. Exactly what Dallas needed to get the very tough road win in Minnesota.
Very tough road one. Yeah, Luka had he scored like 15 straight in the fourth there for a minute.
Mhm.
I don't know. The biggest thing I saw, and they hit on this a lot during the game, was Kyrie dropped 30 and Ant was gassed, and Minnesota kind of just ran out of gas. Like they didn't have the answers offensively, which I thought was the reason I picked Dallas in the first place. I just thought like Derrick Jones Jr., P.J. Washington, even like Tim Hardaway minutes were going to be decent enough to get Dallas over the hump if Kyrie and Luka struggled. But really, the difference in this game was, like I said, Minnesota's lack of offense down the stretch, but Dallas's consistency on the defensive end. That big three of those front court guys, Lively, Gafford, and Washington, is very impressive stuff. And
Are you gonna shout out the best defensive boy out there, Luka Doncic, doing some work?
Very well down the stretch in this one. He played very well on both ends down the stretch.
We always make fun of him for being just a cone out there, but he actually played really well down the stretch yesterday.
And it was him who secured the game-winning rebound right at the end too. He got his hand on the ball as the clock expired.
Yes, it was. But so I think that another thing that we got to talk about here. So, Minnesota, well, first of all, getting the production that they got from their role players again. Jaden McDaniels, again, he could not miss to start the game.
3 straight 20 balls.
Yeah, 3 straight 20-point games. This has got to be the first time in his career that he's done that. Naz Reid again off the bench, and they were looking good. Wolves were up by 5 near the start of the fourth quarter, and for the rest of the fourth quarter, all they needed to do to close out this game was to get quality looks on the offensive end, get up good shots, maybe use some clock. But they didn't do that at all because they turned the ball over. 5 turnovers in the fourth quarter, all in the last 8.5 minutes, and some of them were just rough turnovers, like Jaden McDaniels on the drive, turning it over, just losing the ball, which led to a dunk at the other end. Had another play where he kind of drove under the basket, had nowhere else to go, and just threw it away. Anthony Edwards with some bad passes. it was just the Dallas defense, which we've seen the second half of the season and into these playoffs, which has really been winning them these games in the playoffs.
They're too Anthony Edwards dependent on that end, and when Cat doesn't have it going, I honestly, so Rudy has been very impressive to me in this series. I think he's been playing great offensively just as much as defensively. They need to look more to him to be like if he can start getting double teamed as well. I don't know, at least like or tagged on the roll more often.
It'll
Like
help with this. You
you
gotta
gotta
have
get
a
him going to the rim.
you gotta have a presence inside, and when Cat's not having it going, there's no presence inside. You're 100% right. They need to because Rudy Gobert has been playing great last series, this series. Go to him, have him initiate it, get the spacing back. Because if there's nobody on the inside, then you can't get some of your shooters open. And Edwards can even take a break of just dominating the ball because he was gassed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And in the modern NBA, this is kind of crazy. You're talking about spacing the floor, the 3-point shot. The Wolves were knocking down threes. The Wolves were 18 for 49 from three, while the Mavericks were 6 for 25. And in the modern NBA, if with that contrast, the team that made, 3 times as many 3-pointers as their opponent is going to win that game. But
Yeah.
in this case, it was the Dallas Mavericks pulling it out and not even making it efficiently either at just 24%. Like looking at these playoffs, heading into this game, teams were 2-11 when they made just 25% or less of their threes. And the only 2 wins were the Denver Nuggets in that Lakers series. If you were not the Denver Nuggets, you were 0-11. You had not won a game in the playoffs when you shot that poorly from three, and the Mavericks pulled it out. It's just crazy that in the modern NBA they were able to win this sort of battle.
Yeah, I mean Anthony Edwards, he shot 5 of 12 from deep, which I mean I'm happy with that. But to go 6 of 16 overall, you only had 4 other 2-point shot attempts.
4 2-point shots. That's just not it for Anthony Edwards.
I love the fact that you're scoring in double digits and you nearly got triple double, 19, 11, and 8. But you have to be more all gas, no breaks. You have to attack more, even if that double team's coming. Like maybe you can't guard Kyrie for 40 minutes on the other end.
They
Yeah.
definitely are struggling on the offensive end. They definitely need Cat to be dominant again.
Speaking of cones.
What? Speaking of cones, yeah.
No. I mean, anytime Rudy got checked out for Nas Reed, Mavericks got anything they wanted in the lane.
Yeah. Well, and then even in the third quarter, the Mavericks, the Timberwolves were playing drop coverage in the pick and roll, and it got Daniel Gafford 3 dunks immediately.
Yeah, you got to find a way to switch up the coverage. I mean, you can't run that repetitive coverage over and over and over because they beat it once and twice and then 3 times you just look stupid. Like you got to either send a double or like force them to give it up, blitz it, or
you definitely got to switch something up.
And by all accounts, after the game, I don't remember which Timberwolves player, but someone said that their plan was to play drop, and they just didn't do it. They didn't do it in the third quarter. When they got to it, it worked. Like there was a play in the third quarter where they adjusted their defense. They blitzed, I believe it was Luka, and Daniel Gafford had to dribble and make a play in the short roll, and he just lost the ball. Like that because that's not his game. That's why
Yeah.
I think blitzing is the way you got to go for it and force these other Mavericks to make plays.
just a little sneak peek. I don't know if we'll get to it. The short roll is such a key skill for like any. We're talking NBA draft. NBA draft. It's a very good skill to have in today's game.
Especially for bigs and smaller bigs. It is huge to be able to make plays out of the short roll. Like even
Siakam, I mean,
yeah,
13,
Siakam
17 today.
Yeah, like Derek Lively in this game. I know he had one play where he traveled because the Timberwolves came in double, but there was one play where Luca fed him the ball and he did a nice little Euro step and reverse layup. And it's like, that is exactly what you need from your bigs nowadays. If you're not going to be a stretch, then you need to be able to make plays out of the short roll, whether it's a a lob to the guy at the rim, a pass to the corner, or just making a move, a little floater. That's definitely huge for a big.
I gotta ask, what are you guys looking for in Game 2, and which way do you think the series will go in that one? Do you think Minnesota can bounce back, or do you think Dallas really like takes a stronghold here? And well, Minnesota, I mean, they lost the first two ones.
Yeah, that is true. They did lose their first two home games in the Denver series.
Oh
so
yeah, that's true. After winning the first two away,
they won the first two road games, but then they lost at home twice in a row. So they could
that's
do
not
it
really
again.
comparable.
They don't win at home. They hate their fans. That's what it is. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
What are you guys looking for though?
I think I have Dallas in 7. I'm gonna stick with that prediction. I think Wolves win this game. I think they bounce back. I think having a couple more days at home for Ant Edwards, rest up, because like you said, he's got to be all gas, no brakes. He's gonna have to go, 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 be the offense. I think maybe a couple other guys step up as well, scoring a little more. Like maybe Mike Conley hitting a couple more shots. Jaden McDaniels, instead of getting 19, gets like 20 or something. Like you never. I think a couple of those guys will just hit a couple more shots because Game 1 was very close. They don't need a whole lot more. They just needed just a little bit, and I think they get it this game.
So if you're the Dallas Mavericks, you have to be feeling great because, like I said, you shot 6 for 25 from 3, and you won a playoff game on the road in a hostile environment. Which shout out to the Timberwolves fans. I mean, they showed out, first Western Conference Finals game in 20 years.
They brought their ass.
Oh, yes, they did. But I think that the Mavericks, they got to be feeling even more, great about themselves because, their game plan. I think that they are going to stick with their same game plan. It looked like they were going to live with the Minnesota Timberwolves making 3-point shots and not getting down the lane. I think that's why you saw Ant Edwards only getting 4 2-point shots. Karl Anthony Towns going 6 for 20 from the field. And them shooting 9 more threes than twos in this game. Like, that's not the Minnesota Timberwolves that we've seen all season.
No.
And if you're Dallas, I think that, I guess for Minnesota, you lost a game where Jaden McDaniels has another great game, 6 threes, 24 points, another efficient game. I don't know if he can do that for a 4th straight game. I don't know if Kyle Anderson can give you 11 points in a half. I don't know if all these things can go your way for Minnesota while also knowing that Dallas did not play a very good game offensively. So if you're the Mavericks, you got to be feeling great that you were able to win this game. I think that they're playing with house money in game 2 because, I mean, if you lose this game, it's like, okay, we took game 1. We do what we were supposed to do.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that Dallas definitely does have the momentum, and they should be feeling good. But it's pretty simple for me. I think, well, Dallas's 2 stars outscored Timberwolves 2 stars 63 to 43 in this one, and that is a very, very big disparity, and that could flip the other way. I mean, maybe not that much disparity the other way, but even just like a little bit better in the Timberwolves' favor would obviously help their chances. You obviously have to look at Rudy more, like we mentioned. That would help go outside in a little bit. And even if you don't get 25 from Jaden, or you don't have Kyle Anderson hit 11 points and a half, like Naz Reid is still going to get his 10 to 15 points or more. Mike Conley hopefully will have more than 6 points. Like we said, he almost had that 4-point amazing game-winning play. Like that could have. I mean, that's all Minnesota was away. They were only that much away, and they got outscored 63 to 43. They're 2 stars.
It's funny that you mentioned that the star disparity because that's exactly what because like every single series we've talked about in the playoffs so far, we always talk, oh, we got the stars, but it's always the other guys. This time it's like for Minnesota, it's like, yo, the other guys are stepping up. We need the stars now to step up.
Yeah.
Looking back at these Anthony Edwards field goal attempts, this is very interesting. So his first 2 shots were mid-range shots that both came within the first 3-4 minutes of the game. So he basically took two 2-point shots the rest of the whole game because he took two immediately to start the game. Then the
Did he
rest it
make
was like
either of the
only
first
threes.
two?
He was 1 for 2 in the mid range. Then it was a lot of settling for threes. A lot of settling. I
mean,
thought.
even so, he was 5 for 12, right? That's 40%.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. But I think that Anthony Edwards is going to make the adjustment for game 2 and attack more and get to the line more because even that he only got 2 free throws. Free throw making was another big thing. I know that it's kind of skewed a little bit because Mike Conley had to miss that final one, but 11 for 17 from the line even without that other miss.
Sure.
It's just not that good. It's just not that good. And you got the Mavericks going 16 for 17 at the line. I mean, critical things, free throws, turnovers, those are the things that can lose you games in these at this point of the season.
And
it was a very fun game. Crazy game one.
That's the frustrating thing about like as a coach, because those are like the things that you teach that are like those are the preventable things. You got to work on the free throws. Nobody's trying to block your shot. Like you work on those in practice. Turnovers, that's literally on you. So those are preventable, and that's just got. Sometimes the shots aren't making in. Sometimes they just got good defense. You can live with those. You just got to make sure you shoot better the next game. That one's just like, hey, we did everything right. This one is just like, guys, come on. Like, we're right there. And you're, like you said, they're giving it away.
It is very fun to watch guys who are getting paid millions make the same mistakes that my 14th, 15th
right.
players do.
Very humbling.
Kind of fun.
That is, that's a funny point. Final thing before we move on to some other news around the association. Something that could have maybe played into Minnesota's turnovers at the end is something that's kind of interesting to note is that they haven't really been in a whole lot of close games in these playoffs. Like this was kind of really their first clutch time in the playoffs, besides I guess Game 7 of the Nuggets series. But they, they blew past Phoenix. They blew past Phoenix, and then their wins and losses. There were a lot of blowouts in that Denver series.
Yeah.
And this was a very close game. Like it was a 2-possession game. I'm pretty sure the whole fourth quarter.
Is that worrisome? Because that's like what you see out of the young teams. They can't close out those. They can't close out those close games. That maybe they're just untested and they don't know how to do it yet. That would be very unfortunate because they're like one of the most complete teams I've seen.
Yeah. Because on the other hand, Dallas go ahead, Nick.
That comes like we're talking about the same night that Boston wins a game one that they probably would have lost in previous years.
Yeah.
True. True.
Absolutely. So it's going to be great to see the rest of these. I mean, I hope that we could get 7 or 6 more games like we got game 1 because it was just great to see. A lot of players playing very, very well. Moving on to some news around the league, we have another head coaching spot that is now open with the Cleveland Cavaliers dismissing JB Bickerstaff this morning after 4.5 years. Joey is praying to the heavens, as I'm sure a lot of Cavalier fans are. We talked about him a little bit after in the last episode or two when the Cavs were eliminated about we appreciate JB for getting us back relevant a little bit, but this does seem like a situation where it's time to move on and try to get another voice in that locker room.
Yeah, I think you said it best. Just getting another trusted voice to be a more effective leader than what was happening in the locker room up to this point. It sounded like there were a lot of murmurings and like feelings that he didn't have a hold of all the guys on the team. And that, like I've mentioned before, every time I've seen him get a close up in the huddle, like during these playoffs, during the Magic and the Celtics runs, like it was all just fake tough guy stuff, like motivational speech rather than basketball on the court. He wasn't giving them advice. He was just raw. He was being a cheerleader.
We as much as I want to rip him to shreds, I can't. He was a good coach. He's the motivational coach is great for like young guys who are trying to learn the game. You teach them a little bit about the NBA game and the basketball, but you really just want to get the confidence because once their confidence is shattered at a young age, like it's broken, it's super hard to come back from that. But for a young team, he's a perfect coach. We just tapped out the potential, I think. Like getting to the playoffs, barely making it out of the first round, and then a gentleman sweep in round two, let alone injuries, best team in the NBA. I get it. Like, there's some excuses for it, but, like, realistically, we all knew, like, hey, that was probably the best we could do with this team, with this coach. There's not much room for improvement we don't see.
Yeah. I saw it after the Knicks series last year, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
a lot of us saw it earlier.
There was, and I think that there was a case to keep him after last year because you could put it on the players that it was their first run in the playoffs, and that was very, very true. It was very hard to see if JB's coaching schemes worked in the playoffs because of how bad the Cavs' best players played. This season, the players played well for the most part, and we saw some coaching issues throughout the season.
Garland was playing like he was playing in his first playoff series again.
Yeah, so JB Bickerstaff, after this tenure, 5th most wins in Cavs history. So, he definitely will be someone that he won't be out of the coaching realms for long, I don't think. Like you said, Joey, he's a very good coach for developing teams, rebuilding young teams. We've seen it in Memphis, of course, Cleveland leading this culture change. And now the Cavaliers join the LA Lakers and Washington Wizards in open head coaching vacancies. And I think that this Cavs coaching position is a very attractive one for coaches around the league. Maybe the biggest reason is that they're in the Eastern Conference, where you have a much better chance to be successful in the East than the West, which is, we've seen some very good teams miss out on the playoffs this year. And a lot of very interesting candidates out there. Kenny Atkinson, James Borrego,
JJ Redick.
I've seen some Terry Stotts, Frank Vogel, even some first year guys that could be very, very interesting.
My first question, if I was interviewing for that job, would be who's going to be on the roster and who's getting traded.
Yeah, I think a lot of that will have to do with the coaching hire. Because we just really don't know. I mean, this Cavs roster, it could look completely different going into next year. It could be the same. Like you just don't know what could happen.
I think they'll leverage it where they'll try to sign Donovan Mitchell to an extension first, just to say like, hey, we're going with you. We want you here. Come help us pick out your next head coach, please. Here's a little more incentive just to come here. We'll let you have the pick of the litter.
Nice.
I think that the 3 most intriguing names probably are James Borrego, who I mentioned in the pre-pod lobby, because he was the helm of some really good Charlotte Hornets offenses for a couple of years when they were healthy. And I think that under the Popovich
tree.
Currently an assistant with the Pelicans. I think that the Cavs should be looking for someone that is a good offensive coach with experience. James Borrego has that.
Can we bring him and Brandon Ingram together?
Yes.
Definitely possible. You got Kenny Atkinson, who's currently a Warriors assistant, was the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets during their culture change. Coached both Jared Allen and Karis LeVert when they were in Brooklyn.
Last time the GFF were good.
The last time that they were good. And then Terry Stotts is another name that's kind of intriguing, considering, he was the Portland Trailblazers with a small backcourt of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. They were pretty successful on both ends of the floor with not a whole lot of players to work with outside of those top 2 guys. So
he's an interesting. I always liked him in Portland because he really got the most out of CJ and Dame because there was not a lot of help around him. If he came here, I'm curious on how he would do with a couple elite bigs and one elite guard, whoever we choose, because I know it's going to be only one.
Yeah, most
And it may
certainly.
be only one elite big man too. We don't know, but either way, that's more help and probably better talent overall than he had in Portland.
Absolutely. Like when you look at those Blazers years, they had the really solid starting fives when they had like Wes Matthews, Nick Batum, and Robin Lopez in there with Lillard and LaMarcus Aldridge. Then after um I believe in 2015, four of the five starters left. They were still a playoff team. They even made it to the second round that first year. With guys like Al Farouk Aminu, Mason Plumlee, Mo Harkless being starting front court players. So always an overachiever. There are definitely some interesting coaching names out there for the Cavs.
I actually have a prediction.
Yeah.
So, I can't believe I'm saying this.
Oh no! Oh no!
What? Clippers fire Ty Lue? Ty Lue?
No, hear me out. Hear me out. So the Lakers are obviously eyeing Donovan, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
A Donovan, AD, and Brown, like maybe, I don't know, would the Lakers really just decimate their entire roster for that? Who knows? Let's say they do. Let's just say they do.
Let you say they get Donovan Mitchell. It's hypothetical.
They get Donovan Mitchell. They also hire JB Bickerstaff. We hire Frank Vogel. Cavs, Lakers, finals next year.
Final. Oh my! What are we? Oh my!
Oh my gosh! NBA, hire him. Nick is the next best script writer. Do it.
There is no way that JB will go to the Lakers if Donovan Mitchell is there too.
And we get Frank Vogel.
And we get
Frank Vogel from the Suns. Oh my goodness gracious!
Obviously, because he won a championship with LeBron and the Lakers.
Well, yes, of course. Oh my goodness gracious! We'll see if any of this script writing comes true. Oh my!
Yeah, for all the listeners and viewers, the real prediction that we all know is that Coach Cove will be hired by the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we're gonna win the finals. Like, relax,
No,
we all
JJ
know
Redick.
this.
JJ Redick, dude. Oh my gosh.
JJ and Coach Cove as the Cleveland coaching staff.
What an elite tandem right there.
We do have All NBA.
We do have All NBA. Let's get to that. All the All NBA teams and all defensive teams were both released over the last couple days. We'll start with All NBA. So the first team was Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Jokic, and Jason Tatum. I think that's what we all ended up deciding on. Those were pretty simple. Well, no, Nick did not agree with this.
I botched mine, but yeah, I couldn't imagine anyone else.
Yeah.
Those are the top five.
Who did you have again, Nick?
I think LeBron was in there, no?
Wait, on your first team?
Oh. I don't remember. Let's move on.
Dude,
Let's move on. I don't want to talk about my mistakes.
Dude, I should go find this because I'm
actually
curious. Because there are different guys on here that we did have predicted. The second team, this might be what we all ended up having: Jalen Brunson, Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, and Anthony Davis. And then the third team, we've got Steph Curry, Tyrese Halliburton, Devin Booker, LeBron James, and Domantas Sabonis. Now,
Sabonis.
Yeah, Sabonis making All NBA. Now, something that I've seen a lot of people go crazy about was Kawhi making the second team over LeBron. I do
have a great year.
Yeah, Kawhi did have a very good year. So yeah, looking at our collective
and the
list,
Clippers had more wins.
Clippers did have more wins. So the first team, we all had the same things here. Well, collectively, Nick had KD and LeBron. That's what it was on the first team. Second team, our collective list was Brunson, Ant, Kawhi, KD, and Sabonis. We had Sabonis on the second team. And then the third, we had Steph, LeBron, AD on the third team. We had Paolo Banchero making ours. And then the last...
Tyrese.
Yes, over Tyrese Halliburton. And then a lot of guys at the end of the list we all couldn't decide on. But the runner-up, really, to make the third team was Jaylen Brown, who we talked a little bit about before.
He was a big snub where I got enough that I didn't look at it, or watch it, but they asked Jaylen Brown in the press after the game today about his snub and what he felt and all that, and he's just like, I'm just focused on going to the finals. So
winning a ring.
yep,
Winning a ring. Yeah,
that's what you got to
absolutely.
focus on. Hey, he proved him wrong tonight, so that's all I care about.
Yeah, I mean, you could say he's the big snub, but then it's always like, who do you take out of this list? It's hard to really figure out. Maybe Devin Booker. I mean, Devin Booker had a really good regular
He had
season.
a great year.
You could say Jalen Brown was on, the best team in the NBA that could overtake it. But all these guys obviously well deserving. It's not like,
Yeah.
um,
I would have been real mad if Sabonis didn't make it. That would have been a big snub in my opinion, because Sacramento already doesn't get enough love. That he doesn't get enough love for being an elite big man, and he just deserves it.
well, funny thing about that, I don't know if you guys have known about this, but it on MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and these All NBA teams, someone's voted Sabonis. This one same guy voted Sabonis for first place MVP,
Okay,
Defensive
take
Player
it
of the
back.
Year.
Someone's giving him love.
It's crazy. I'm pretty sure it was the same guy for
Someone's
all of
giving him
them,
love.
and it's unbelievable. But going to the all defensive teams, these were also released. The first team was Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, of course, the Defensive Player of the Year, Victor Wembanyama, being the youngest player to make the first team all defensive team, I believe, passing Evan Mobley from maybe just last year as the youngest player, and then Herb Jones, the only guard to make the first team. Then the second team was all wings and guards with Drew Holiday, Derek White, the backcourt of the Boston Celtics, Jalen Suggs, Alex Caruso, and Jaden McDaniels making all defense.
I I'll have Goggins back for this. Um, where's Ant? I thought
Uh
Ant would make this. I'll be honest. I thought Ant would make this. He is one of the best on-ball defenders I think I've seen in a while.
I think that there's a good case for a lot of other guys.
Drew Holiday, obviously, but
But like even when you look at there are a lot
Caruso
of players that made the voting over him. Like Anthony Edwards only got 4 votes to make this
ooh,
list. But you got
I
like the most recent quote unquote snubs were Lou Dort, Kawhi Leonard, Chet Holmgren, Jared Allen, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis, Kentavious Caldwell, all guys that had terrific defensive
okay,
years.
fair.
Um, Again, I think this Domantas Sabonis first team all defense.
Why? I'm sorry. That's even too much for me.
I guess because defensive rebounds are a part of defense, and he led the league in rebounding. That could be the only argument you could make. That's the only argument you could make. Is that the worst thing on this vote? I think that probably is.
That might be.
DeJounte Murray getting a second place. You know what? I should look back at all these awards and find the worst voting thing, because some of these are crazy. I mean, the Marcus Sasser getting an all rookie team vote.
I know if
Um,
you ask kids nowadays, they'll tell you Joakim Noah was in an MVP running.
that is accurate. That is accurate. Third or fourth in MVP
He was.
2014.
I think he was third or fourth.
Yeah, man. Nick, what do you have for us? We're already looking ahead to the draft here. You've got a mock draft, your first mock draft for us.
Yeah, I do. I can rattle off. It's only 15 picks. So first is going to be Alex Sarr. Pretty pretty easy pick here for the Hawks. 7-footer, athletic, very skilled with the ball. He's a skilled scorer. He's a mobile big, covers a lot of ground. Going to be able to help DeJounte and Trae Young be more aggressive on ball defenders.
Whoever they decide to keep.
I was to say they also have a guard like the Cavs. Whichever guard's gonna be there.
Yeah, they could keep him. I mean, this dude fits pretty well, Alex Sarr. The second guy is Zachary Risacher. He's also a French wing, MPJ sort of comparable guy. He's got all the same skills that would like allow him to be as effective catch and shoot nightmare. He's 6'9", gets it up over the top. And then he's pretty good on the defensive end as well. I think Cody Williams, Jalen Williams' little brother, is going to be the third pick because I was really impressed with just what I saw from him on film, and like his offensive skill set is very transferable to the league. And yeah, I think he could be even maybe possibly better than his brother, honestly. So I have him third.
Oh wow.
Um, I got Montes Vazelis fourth from G League Ignite. Last year it was two overtime elite guys, the Asar and Amen Thompson twins, but this year I think it's going to be Vazelis and Ron Holland going fourth and fifth from the G League Ignite. Um,
The last year
sixth,
for the G League Ignite actually, right?
Yeah. Yes, correct.
yeah,
Sorry.
sixth is a it's another foreign guy. He His name is Tidjane Saloon. He's very impressive. I have him. I've seen him as high as top three. He's in everybody's lottery, so he's definitely going to be a top pick. Um, Very impressive stuff. I mean, he's like a lob threat over top. He's also mobile, but I saw like shades of LP in him. He's a similar player to Zachary Risacher. He's a stretch wing who like could put it on the deck and also score it at the rim.
Mm.
But he could be better like than Risacher because Risacher kind of struggles to have like independent offense where he gets like creating his own shot. This dude does that naturally. He's got a more natural sort of feel to him. Seventh, I have Reed Shepard, the white kid out of Kentucky who just plays really hard and makes a lot of shots and takes care of the ball. He's undersized for a two, and he's not really a true point guard. So I don't know what his fit's gonna be. So I have him down at seven. Number eight is Stephon Castle out of UConn. Very high motor guy, fun to watch, slasher, mid range sort of thing. He could develop his 3 point shot and really be a lethal offensive player. Ninth is Nikola Topic, who's I don't know, question marks about this guy for me. He just kind of doesn't really have a comparison and doesn't really fit into a specific mold that we've seen before. So, and then 10th, I have Rob Dillingham. He's undersized. I have questions about his defensive ability, but he's probably the best offensive scorer in the draft. 11, Dalton Connect. 12, Donovan Clingan. 13, Jacoby Walter. 14, Eve Meesey. And 15, Carlton Carrington.
Mm.
So,
Okay. I got a question for you. So usually the whole talk around this draft is that it's the weak draft. It's one of the weakest drafts we've seen. We have talked about it a little bit, I think, either in a pre-pod lobby or recorded, but we've talked about how every draft usually has like a couple all-stars, so you can't really call them like it's you can compare like who's stronger, but like none of them are really that weak. What all stars do you predict at least out of these top picks that
what
are
I'll say
like
is
make
like
that argument so they're not like weaker than the others?
I don't know. It's a hard question because what I was gonna say is like there's not really like a drop off. Like a lot of drafts, you'd be like, okay, the top three are pretty much set in stone, and then there's a bit of a drop off. Like one through like 10, there's like not a huge drop off between a whole lot of these guys. They all have a lot of potential,
Mm.
but that's like with that being said, like it is weaker just because I don't know. There's no like
There's no superstar potential guy
Okay,
that we see
yeah.
so far.
Like you're saying, like there's the top couple picks, and then there's the huge drop off. There's no drop off really between the first 10 picks, but none of the picks are as high as the top picks we've seen, but in the past.
yeah, like Alex Star isn't even a consensus topic. Like it could be
Yeah,
Risacher one,
I've
and
heard he's just like Wemby light though.
he's not.
Well, I
I've when I've been looking, so I've
no.
been starting to do a little bit of research about him. He kind of reminds me of a Jaren Jackson Jr. type
Ooh.
player. I don't know. Would
Yeah,
you say? I mean, you would know more than me, Nick.
he's a little bit more skilled, I'd say, offensively than Jaren Jackson,
Okay.
That's
and
those are pretty
he
good
really
players.
does. Like he's got a 7'3" wingspan, and he moves like he does move very well. But I didn't think he's on Wemby's level.
No, yeah, no, not even like close to. Nobody's close to that skill set, like all
A
around.
guy who I think is being slept on. I think he could be really good in this draft. Is Matas Bazelis at 4? I mean, there's a lot of question marks around him, very rightly so, because he didn't have a great year with G League Ignite, but he was very good in high school, and he kind of came over from overseas, I think, in his sophomore year, like junior year in high school, and he dominated in high school.
We look at those type high school recruits, and maybe they don't live up quite to the potential in college or the G League, and they come into the NBA no matter what, and they still do well. Andrew Wiggins, I know he was still good at Kansas, but like, hey, he still won a ring. Jalen Green as well, like no ring yet, but like also really talented young guy who's a star for the Rockets.
I will leave you guys with this. I think the best player in this draft could be 24 years old. There's a kid coming out of Illinois, Terrence Shannon Jr.
Terrence Shannon Jr.
He's very good, but he's 24, and I don't know how really that's gonna go. But
he was
had like
insane
some
in the
crazy
tournament.
It was only like him and Luka who had some crazy stat. Like I wish I could have an impression of it.
Wow. Well, yeah, it is usually we've seen, in each draft, there's always like just a guy that is in the 20s, 30s picks that becomes an all-star, really good, becomes effective day one. And usually it is those guys that spend a lot of years in college. So that definitely could be possible. I think that in this sort of draft, it could be, the how these players perform, how their careers turn out, at least to start, could very well have a lot to do with their situation that they get drafted to. Because it is a lot of guys that could project to just be really solid role players, but maybe no superstar. And you kind of got to be in the right situation to,
take advantage of that.
Yeah, to take advantage of that.
It's unfortunate to all the other guys in this draft because to at least probably most of the media and to most people, this will just be labeled as the Bronny James draft unless you become a superstar that changes the game.
It's unfortunate for whoever gets picked by Detroit.
Oh my goodness gracious. Shots fired at the Motor City. Oh.
No, I like the Pistons, but
Man, I felt bad for them after the lottery. Man, I felt so bad. Fifth pick again.
I'm excited to see how this draft turns out. It feels like we could have so many trades with the top of the draft. I'm excited to start
trade talk too.
Absolutely. It's going to be so much fun. Still got the conference finals going on. You guys got anything else before we get out of here?
No, sir.
I don't think so.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe for more NBA playoff content. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will catch you in the next one.
Peace.